Welcome to our school board interviews. I am Reverend Corinne Mack, president of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg NAACP. These interviews were done on an individual basis to allow you to hear directly from each candidate. Please take the time to listen carefully. But before I go any further, I must thank two phenomenal women, Ms. Annette Albright, who is our educational chairperson, and Mrs. Terrell Nichols, who is our political action chairperson. These women have done so much work to ensure that we elevate not only our children in the educational system, but this process. Please take the time to listen to every interview and make a decision as to who best serves you, your children, and your family. It's so important that we are involved in this process. This branch, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg branch, led the charge in the lawsuit against the state legislators for educational inequity, violation of the Landrill Act. That lawsuit will directly change the lives for Black, Brown, Indigenous, and children at risk. Educational equity is imperative. We're talking about our children and their futures. And so the work that we do on a daily basis is to ensure that we have a just system. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you enjoy every interview. God bless you.
My name is Gregory D. Rankin, and I am a native Charlottean, candidate for District 3 School Board. I have 3 daughters, one that's a graduate of CMS, two that currently attend CMS schools here at Hopewell High School, and also I'm a former educator. I've been in the nonprofit sector over the last 14 to 15 years in youth serving organizations. I also have been a part of several community organizations, but also a lot of community work. I've been serving our community for a long time. A couple of the organizations I've served through, I was the chair of the Mayor's Mentoring Alliance, providing services to youth serving organizations and trainings, and to ensure that kids that need mentoring, that's available to them. I've also been the chair of the Black Political Caucus Education Committee, where I served them for many years in being an educational advocate, as well as educating our community on issues in education around the schools. Also, in that capacity, I was successful in passing policy around student discipline, where there was disparity among suspensions amongst Black kids and white kids. Lastly, I was also appointed to the current CMS Equity Committee by our current District Rep 3, Dr. Ruby Jones. She appointed me to the CMS Equity Committee, where I'll serve there, and was also successful in helping changing policy around discipline and the parent and student handbook, with some different input on there as well. So I've been serving the community for a very long time. I've been an education advocate for a very long time, a former educator. I know what it takes to be successful in leadership, but now I'm really looking to serve our kids and our community on the school board. One, I would like to just explain my role as a board member. It's not my job to remove books, censor anyone. That is not my job as a board member. My job is to govern the superintendent. Now, I will govern the superintendent, and I will take the expertise of his leadership team and his curriculum team, that they've selected a curriculum that is sufficient enough to educate our kids. And I think it's dangerous when we start looking at certain books and certain things to start censoring them, because I trust our leaders. Now, there are certain steps that if there are parents or members of the community that feel that there's not a book that's correct for them, there are steps they can take to speak with either their teacher, principal, learning community superintendent, to say, hey, what can I do to get an alternate done? But when we start talking about censoring, what's going to be censored next? Where our kids go to school, what they wear, what they say, what they do, what they read. That's not something the board does. We don't censor anything. I was a part of one of the things I was doing to help advocate for was during COVID. I, along with other members of the education committee, they were talking about taking out books about the Little Rock Nine. They were talking about taking out books about the Holocaust, talking about books about Asian Americans, because they thought that was too sensitive a subject to discuss during COVID, during virtual virtual learning. But I said that is not fair because those are very, very important topics that need to be discussed. And it's not our job to censor those books. Censorship is very dangerous. And that's why, we need to make sure that we leave that up to the experts, and then ask questions and on the why that book was chosen, and then take the proper channels to figure out how can I, if it's something individual for your child that needs to be removed, remove that. Any individual, even regardless if you're a historian or a non-historian, history is based on facts. History is based on the truth. History is based on what actually happened. So anyone that is altering any of the stories, altering any of the narratives, altering any of the things that our kids are learning, are giving our kids a disservice on what they're supposed to be learning in school, which is history. I think history should include the full story. I think history should include every aspect of history from different perspectives. I think there should be a perspective when, let's say, for example, if you're talking about the Civil War, you should talk about the perspective of the North, the perspective of the South, the perspective of the economic value of it, the socioeconomics of it. You should take in the aspect of the slaves, the aspects of the owners, the aspect of the Union, the aspect of the Confederacy. All these things should be in place when we're talking about history. And every aspect should be taught in its true manner. So if we're talking about altering based on feelings or based on, how someone may feel, I think that's what we're doing our kids a disservice. And we should make sure that they are learning the true history and have educators that can explain those things without individuals feeling guilty or without individuals feeling as victims, because these are the real stories and we should learn from them. I'm not one up here who gets up here to say I'm what I can and cannot do and what I can and cannot fix. I'm also educating, and I want to make sure when we ask these specific questions that the goal of the board member is to govern the superintendent and create policy. As a board member, I'm not gonna get up here and say, yes, I'm gonna fix the school board, the bus problem, like by doing A, B, and C. That's not in my wheelhouse. I can't do that. But what I can do, I can implore the superintendent to say, hey, as a board member, I'm one vote, see if we can get a plan, a strategy from the superintendent and his transportation team to figure out what can we do to improve our transportation experience, and have them present that to the board and also to the public. And then once that strategy and once that plan is put in place, my job as a superintendent, as a board member, is to hold the superintendent accountable to that strategy, to that plan, to improve our transportation plans and anything that may be wrong with transportation. Both are needed. I think that spending money on new schools are needed because we're in a county that has continuous growth. So we can either fix the new schools, the old schools, and then create schools that have over 3,000 students, or we can build new schools and reduce the class sizes. And from there, when you reduce school class sizes, you can have better instruction. So I think you can, hopefully, if the budget is done correctly, if the board approves, and that's one thing we do have control of is the budget. If the budget is approved and is fiscally responsible, and we could probably do both. Of course, not at the same time, but we can identify schools that need to be repaired or renovated and improved, but also at the same time build new schools, because we're in a growing city, we're in a growing county, and there's always going to be a need for new schools as well as renovations. So I think the goal would be to implore our facilities team of the district to put together a type of rubric and make that transparent to the public, to give an idea what is priority, is this the growth in this particular area Is it a higher need versus renovating this old school? This does not have, a school that's conducive to a learning environment. Those are things we have to weigh as a board, and we employ our superintendent and his team to show us which one is more important. So that's what I would do. I would want to make sure, I would want to see data, strategy, plan on what's more of a dire need versus more so an emotional, an emotional decision. On my end, and from the board member perspective, I think it would be good for us as a board to review the budget. I know that was a federal program where kids get free breakfast. I know at certain schools you receive free breakfast and free lunch. So if that's something that's been removed, I think we have to review and see why. And then from there, did we find out if we lost? Was it a grant? Was it funding? Was it lack of accountability? Was it lack of reporting? But I think that was a federal program that's been given to, I think, not only just our state, our county, but many other counties. But I think that it's our job to review the budget and to identify those students who may lack the economic burden of being able to pay for a breakfast or a lunch, and provide those students with lunch. That would be the burden. We would have to say, hey, identify those students with a transparent rubric or a transparent process to say how many students fall into this particular category, and based on their income, we need to provide lunch and breakfast for them, right? And I think if we do that and if we charge a superintendent to do so, and it's in our budget, I think that's something we should be able to do. I think that to give the school district credit for this year, I think they've done a great job of implementing the metal detectors at the schools. I think that was a great start, but I think now we need to take it a step further and try and to increase more supportive measures that are internal. I think that are more discreet. I know the Say Something, See Something app has been used some. I think that if we can increase those measures and educate our parents and educate our students on how to use that app. And secondly, I think if we could possibly increase involvement from the community. I know at my daughter's high school, we had community involvement where parents and other members of the community were able to come in and do duty throughout the day, and help assist during some of the high priority times when kids get in trouble and safety concerns occur. And I know that the first thing individuals would say, well, some parents work. Well, here's the key. This is what I said. I said parents and community members. So we're not going to put we can't put the entire, thing on parents. We have community members and community partners that are available that can assist in some of those schools that may not have the ability to have the high parent involvement based on their circumstances. So I think if we could put a plan together and employ the superintendent to have his team do that, I think that would be a great start. One of the culture of the school board over the years is what's something called freedom and flexibility. That means each individual school has a freedom and flexibility to provide certain services, conduct certain things at their own will. I think there needs to be consistent standards that are set across the board at each level of high school, at the high school level, the middle school level, and elementary level, to where there are certain standards that are put in place that are consistent across the board, that everyone will receive. Because freedom and flexibility, that's how gaps are created. Because one school may be receiving a certain type of education, let's say, for example, in high school, that teaches towards the standards that at the end of the year for EOCs, or teaching towards the standards of the ACT, to where in other schools you may not be teaching towards the standards, you're just teaching to manage your class. And that's where the gap comes in, because I'm not one that believes that there are certain kids that go to school don't have the ability. They do have the ability. One, there have to be standards and expectations that are set, and we have to hold the superintendent and his leadership team to make sure those standards are put in place. but also we have to make sure that those individuals are receiving the quality education that they need. And if not, employ resources, not only financial, but human capital and social capital to close that gap. I think that's what we need. And lastly, provide our teachers that are in these schools the professional development that they need in order so they can be the best teachers that they can be, to make sure that they are equipped with what the knowledge and the classroom management and the skill set to teach the population of kids to raise them where they need to be, and become college and career ready, and just be successful students. Some of the problems that are in my district, District 3, are some of the same problems that are across the entire district. I think that one, like I said before, that we have to really focus on ensuring our kids receive a quality education in every school. I think that what that means is we have to implore that we have what we call accomplished and distinguished teachers at all schools across the district, including District 3. That's one. We have to equip those teachers with what they need professionally, and make sure that they have all the resources necessary to teach our kids. And I think next, we need to really make sure that our kids are being taught in a manner that is receptive to them. We have to improve the environment and the experience that they are receiving. We have to, and what I mean is the experience of school has to be different. It has to be an improved social environment, an improved academic environment, but just an environment that's conducive to learning, to where our kids want to go to school, they want to be at school, they know that the teachers that are there, they care and they're loving to where they want to be there. And that's the core of what we call pedagogy in teaching, the art of teaching. And I think if we can make sure that that environment is improved, the academics will follow. Algebra is algebra, math is math, but how are you presenting those things? How are you introducing those things to our kids in a manner that they will receive it? And I don't want to talk about lowering any expectations. The goal is to raise the expectations and then continue to keep those standards there, so we can know that those students at those schools can achieve.
Thank you very much, Ivy. I very much appreciate this opportunity. My name is Stephen Rushing. I am been here in Charlotte since 2005. I currently have my own business. I do a transport business for children. It's a kid taxi service. So the parents don't actually have to do a daycare, which is quite expensive for them. This is a little bit cheaper aspect for them to be able to get their children to and from school safely, so that they don't have to be late for work. I am half American, half Panamanian. My mother was from Panama. My father was from here in the States. I am bilingual. I believe I'm probably the only Latin American running mate right now for any of the school board areas. I currently also work with my wife. We have a counseling business. We do marriage counseling, as well as I do coaching for men, and my wife does coaching for women. We do that as a business as well. I'm looking forward to being on the school board so that I can provide not only a fresh alternative, but also a fresh mindset and a different view from what's normally been offered. It should be school oriented. If it's about math, if it's about science, if it's about education, if it's about learning, I don't see any problem with any type of book being in school. And it should be age appropriate. A child in middle school should not be forced to read something that maybe is too mature for them. I think it should fit for the grade. I should fit for the age as well. I do not believe in book censorship or book removal. I think we just have to have the right guidance to make sure that they're getting to the children's hands that are supposed to be reading them, not just giving a young child and a mature book and not letting that child be a child. The most important part is we have to make sure that our children are our future and we're molding them the way that we want them molded. Part of that is making sure they're reading the right types of books, the right curriculum, the right information. And if we're giving them something that's too mature too soon, we're asking them to grow up and be adults before their time. They should still be able to learn what they need to learn and still enjoy being children. I do not agree too much with the information of being altered. If you want to add your own perspective, there's nothing wrong with perspective being added on what's already factual. We should not be changing what's already happened. Now we're interfering with future generations knowing exactly what happened. The secret ingredient for knowing where you're going is where you came from. And if you don't know the actual past, if you don't know what actually happened, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's hurtful, whether it's joyous, it's all the truth. We're not supposed to change the truth. We're not supposed to alter it or sugarcoat it so that somebody doesn't want that perspective or that vision being shown in a bad light for their lifestyle or their mindset or whatever was going on at that time. It is the truth that actually happened, and we need to know what went on then so that we don't make the same mistakes, or that we can build on the things that we did right. So we should keep things the way they are. Truth is the truth. I don't believe anybody should be changing it, whether they're a historian or non-historian in any way. With myself owning a transportation business, because I mostly handle charters schools that don't have school buses, we should try to see an outside source, create some kind of a program where it's like an Uber-based system, but for schools, so that we can have one person who can maybe, now it's more privatized instead of going through the school system, because obviously they're either not paying enough or it's not making enough money. So now remove that cost out, so you don't have to have the equipment, you don't have to have the gas out of them. You can just provide it to somebody who individually owns their own business, and they can privatize it, but at the same time go through all the rigorous background checks, all the drug testing, everything like that, to make sure that the person who's driving these children around knows that they're the right candidate for it, even though they own their own business. Like myself, I pick up children from their home, take them to school, and then in the afternoon from school, take them to their home. They get a picture when they get to the front door to the parents to make sure that the children have arrived. You know, I'm very stringent about that to make sure that the parents know that they've arrived safely. So I believe we should make sure that we do an outside source, maybe, because what's been working is not available. And a lot of people are not wanting to drive the school buses. They'd rather do it on their own than working for the school system. Before we move forward to something new, we should fix what's already existing. Not just because of the funding aspect, but for the safety aspect of our children. If a child is inside of a school that has leaking pipes that could cause mold because of water sitting for long periods of time, or there's structural damage, there could be anything that happens to them while they're in the school. You know, we just recently had, we were blessed to escape a bad storm getting hit here in Charlotte. But if it was something really bad and the school is not up to par and a storm hits it, these children don't have any school to go to. And then the other one hasn't been built yet, so they still don't have anywhere to go. We're back in remote at home, which we already know that it did not work very well with remote. I believe we should just continue fixing what we already have. Once that's been in place and it's proper up to code and we spent the funding on that, then we can move on to building new. Because I know that's part of our government funding, I believe we should take some of the money that we're getting and allocate it to that from taxes that we are getting from homeowners, taxes that we're getting from the county itself. We have plenty of money to go around for, you know, armaments in the government, anything to do with the military. So if we can get some of that money to come towards local government, local schools, that would be fantastic. But that's more in the federal level. Locally, I think the best thing to do is maybe try to create some kind of either a donation program or allocate money from other sources that may not need immediate attention, and we can prioritize that to our children, because you can't go to school hungry. You can't start a day and be educated and learning and absorbing everything the teachers have for you, and you're sitting there listening to your stomach rumbling. We need to make sure that we allocate that money from other areas that may be able to not stop, but just put on hold so that we can make sure that they have the food that they need, because sometimes that's the meals that these children are getting, breakfast and lunch at school. So that should be a priority, not maybe building, like we said earlier, new schools. It's actually something that I put a lot of thought into. Is a program that I kind of came up with my own. I call it DOD, all capitals, which is Dads on Duty. A lot of fathers like myself that own their own business that have a lot more free time should maybe donate their time so that they can be there in the mornings, so that they can help get the children out of the cars and help them to get into school, so that the teachers aren't tied from that duty and they can go ahead and start preparing the classroom for the children. Then after that, once they've been vetted, and by vetted, I mean, maybe a simple background check and a drug testing to make sure that they can be in the school around these children, that there's, and they're not armed, they're just walking around. They can spend part of their day and maybe alternate, one father does it for a few hours and another father does it for another few hours, and roam through the school to make sure all the kids are safe, everybody's all right, checking the doors to make sure that everybody's safe. And then in the afternoons, perhaps offer their time for almost like a big brother father figure courses for maybe the children that do not have a father figure at home, so that they can provide that leadership and that father figure in their lives. So it gives you two different aspects of it. It gives you the safety aspect. Well, actually three, if you think about it. It gives you safety. It gives you relief for the teachers in the morning and afternoons for the kids to get in and out of the car. And it gives an opportunity to be a peer program for children that may not have a father figure in their household. I am a big believer in competition. I think competition brings the best out of everyone. Not to say that, to bring down the mindset that everybody gets a trophy just for showing up. I think it's good to give proper appreciation and, attaboy and good job to everybody. But when you have competition it breeds more. If you remember back in the beginning when automobiles were being built, Henry Ford and all those other companies were competing to be number one. And you see where we're at now for electric cars. So the best thing is if we can provide a little competition, whether it's academic and I would make it academic, not so much sports, because we need the education, not the diminish sports, but we need the education to come up. So create some kind of programs that allow more competition between the children and the teachers, and that way they can really give like pride to their school. They can make it stand out with either a trophy program, an award ceremony, something along that. But I think the competition will breed the ability for people to want to push and drive themselves to do better and do more. In my district where I'm at, one of the number one problem, well, there's more than one problem, but I think the number one problem is the teachers are not getting the support they need from the school and the parents. A lot of times, even some of the teachers are quitting because they're not getting the support they need and they're going to other jobs. It's not even what they went to school for. One, because of finances, and two, because they're not getting really the support that they need from who should have their back, which is the school. And then the parents are not really backing up the teachers either. They're taking, which is fine. I understand wanting to take side of your child, but the betterment of your child is based off of what the teacher is giving them while they're in the classroom. So while they're in the classroom, we should really have these teachers' backs, not only financially, but with supplies and any kind of homework, any kind of assignment. If there's something, if we get some bad news on one of our children, don't take it as an offense. Take it as, okay, this is where we need to do some adjustment because I need this teacher to be comfortable and safe and understand that this child needs a little bit more help. So let me do my part to support the teacher. That's one of the main problems. The second thing I would think is there's no bilingual access for a lot of the parents that are in my district, because a lot of the parents they're fluent in Spanish and not English. And unfortunately, the front office doesn't have anybody who translates. So they have to wait for their child to come all the way downstairs to translate for them for the teacher. So it's kind of a twofold problem. It's still supporting the teachers, but we need those two things taken care of.
Well, I hope you enjoyed those interviews. Now it's the time to make the decision. I pray it was a help to you. But please remember that it is so important that you vote the entire ballot. Every position is a critical position and will, in fact, direct your family. As you go through this electoral process, think back to these interviews to make the determination on what's best for you. I hope that you enjoyed this time with us. I hope you consider becoming a member of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg NAACP because we do the real work. We love you. We hope to see you soon. Please stay safe. God bless you all, and good night.